morning, class. We'd like to welcome you here to 2-in-1 Ministries, and we're looking forward to having a fellowship in the near future with our class and their friends. Anyone is invited. Today we are going to be finishing a section on the associations with Freemasonry and how that is incompatible with the church and the family. And I'd like to share a verse with you from John 3:36. And it says, "He that hath the Son hath life, and he that believeth not in the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God abideth on him." And as families, we want to make sure that our foundation is in Jesus Christ, and remembering that He's the light of the world, and He can guide us into every right way so that we can have strong families for the glory of God, and also so that we can have strong church families for the glory of God. Thank you for joining us with our teacher, Todd Frederick.
Okay, glad to have everyone here and by means of internet and watching week to week. And I'm going to kind of open up with a few verses here to sort of set the stage. We're talking about the topic of Freemasonry and how it's involved in secrets and all this stuff. But we need to see what the Lord says about secrets.
Psalm 25:14 says, "The secret of the Lord is with them that fear Him, and He will show them His covenant."
And then, Luke 8:17. "For nothing is secret," Jesus said, "nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad." So here we have the secret of the Lord that talks about. Those are things that and are good things. I mean, He doesn't reveal us our futures and that type of thing. So if we knew it was going to happen a day from now or whatnot, we probably wouldn't get out of bed. And those type of things. But the Lord has good things for us. And then those things that are made in secret, they shall be revealed. As Jesus said, now those are things like man's conniving and so forth, and plotting and all that to do evil. And they think they're going to be able to do it under the cloak of darkness, but in their little secret group. But ultimately, that will come to light and come to bite also. And we can have Luke 12:3.
"Therefore, whatsoever ye have spoken in darkness shall be heard in the light, and that which ye have spoken in the ear in closet shall be proclaimed upon the housetops."
Yeah, and in this section here, we're going to talk a little bit about the Masonic oaths. So many years ago, the first degree or the entered apprentice would swear with his hand on the sacred book of his religion. Now, this is the thing that Freemasonry is pretty much, you come in as the only thing you have to do is confess that there's a creator. And you believe in a God. Not, you can't bring your religion in, as we talked about in the past, is what they teach. Everyone sets aside their own facet of religion, and then you come in as equals, whether you're a Muslim, a Buddhist, or a Christian. So you would swear on the book of your religion, the Bible, the Quran, and so forth, and you would recite various obligations or oaths, and then conclude with these words. This includes, "I do solemnly and sincerely promise and swear without least equivocation, mental reservation, or self-evasion of mind in me whatsoever, binding myself under no less than to have my throat cut across and my tongue torn out by the roots and my body buried in rough sands of the sea at low water mark, where the tide ebbs and flows twice in 24 hours, so help me God, and keep me steadfast in due performance of the same." So you're basically saying, that's why when you ask a Mason, "Well, tell me about the secrets," they won't tell you because they've taken blood oaths. And this actually comes from Captain Morgan's book. he was in the Freemasons back in the 1800s, and then he got out of it. He made it to the 3rd degree. So then he wrote a book about it. He said, this is not an organization you want to be involved in. So as a result of it, these men in his lodge took it upon themselves and drew lots as to who would be taking him out and killing him. And that's what they did. They took him out in a boat, tied anchor weights to him, and shoved him off the boat, and he drowned. So they killed him. So they didn't so much do as this, but the point was that you'd be killed. So the oath was amended and replaced with this below because there was such pushback from this when it came to light. Legal matters took over, and the minor reasoning and so forth. So they thought, well, let's change the oath a little bit. So then they said, all this I most solemnly and sincerely promise and swear, and with a firm and steadfast resolution to perform the same without hesitation, mental reservation, or secret evasion of mine whatsoever. And should I violate this my inter-apprentice obligation, I may be degraded and suspended or expelled from Masonry. So help me God, and keep me steadfast in the due performance of the same. So they kind of took out the part of dying, but basically, there's people still that are killed by Masons. The secret organization is tied in with the occult, and you oftentimes learn about people, like Clintons, for example. Seems like everybody around them were always getting killed. So there's these secret high society people and so forth. They make sure that ever who's in their little clique, if they don't line up right, then they somehow take a long walk on a short plank. Epstein, for example, Harvey Epstein. Anyway, all these guys, him, and others who, in these little tight-knit secret groups, they somehow wind up dying. So that way they don't reveal everybody else's associations. So the fellow craft and master mason, which is the 2nd, 3rd degree, oblations are similarly toned down. A Christian mason makes vows with his hand on the Bible, asking God to keep him steadfast in performing it. So they want to put a nice spin on it, like that this is a God thing or whatever. But to ask God to keep you in this secret organization and perform these things is rather an oxymoron. Once a man becomes a master mason, he is eligible to join the Scottish Rite or the York Rite. And the York Rite Mason has 29 more degrees to go to get to the 32 degree. And a York Rite has 10 more degrees. So then they go from 3 to 10, and they get them 13. Each degree includes an initiation with a blood oath. 32nd degree Mason is a man who reaches a 3rd degree Master Mason in his lodge, and then he goes on to 29 more in the Scottish Rites.
Question, so, would you say that someone is Christian in name only if they're in the Masons because God says you can't worship God and mammon, or how would you describe that?
Well, the thing is that they show like a ladder, and there's always 1st degree, 2nd, 3rd. And by the time each one that you do, you're taking certain oaths, and the representation of each oath, like they call it, by the time you get to the 3rd degree, you're raised a Mason. So basically what that is if you, when you take that degree, you kind of come in and you say a vow and this type thing, and then he thinks, he says, okay, I'm all done. But then they call him the worshipful master. He's like the president of the lodge, but they have all these religious type names. So it's called the worshipful master, or in some cases they're called the most worshipful master. You're thinking, okay, that sounds a little blasphemous, because only Christ is to be worshipped. He's so forth. And also the worshipful master, the way they have the lodge set up is that he presides in the east. Well, when Christ comes back, where's he going to come in at? Through the eastern gate of Jerusalem. So anyway, it's just all this stuff here is just total blasphemy. But in regards to taking these oaths and stuff, so the 3rd degree Mason, he goes and he thinks he's gotten through this little talk that he's supposed to do and initiation, but then the worshipful master says, Warden, he says, there's a stranger in the south. I think it's the south. It's one of the part of the. So then he says, who's the stranger? And he says, well, he's someone who comes to seek light or whatever. So they go through this. It's supposed to be like a dramatization of what happened years ago, which they admittedly enough say it's based on legend or whatnot, but where Hiram Abiff was taken about. He was a master builder for Solomon, so they want to tie it into the Bible and all that. So then, and the case was Hiram Abiff. He held this secret and so forth. And these others who wanted to be Masons but not go through the difficulties of getting initiated and all this stuff, they cornered him and caught him and said, "You tell us what the secret is." And he says, "No, I can't tell you." So these guys killed him. This is all part of this little legend thing. So they reenact this, and then so part of this reenactment is that the third degree Mason will then is surprised because then he's this question is asked, who's here and all like that. So they take this guy, the initiate, and then proceed to ask him, what do you want or whatnot like that. And he says, well, I'm desiring light. So he goes through this thing. And so a person who's not a Mason is considered in darkness, but when you come to the worshipful master, and you actually get to seek light through him. And so this is starting this little stair-step thing. Each one you're taking a little bit more symbolism and oaths and all this stuff. So in this case, they take the guy and do a mock burial, take him out, and then he is then brought back in. And there's all this. They take him. They take his wedding ring off. He changes his clothes and puts in another set of clothes. His one pant leg's rolled up, his shirt's torn, and all this stuff, And so they, in this dramatization thing, this guy goes and is laid down like he's died, because he's dying to his ignorance, his darkness. So then the worshipful master then comes in with a grip of, with master grip, and he goes and gets a hold of him and pulls him up and raises him up to walk in newness of life. I mean, it's totally, if you look at it, it's a parallel with Christian baptism. So it's like a blasphemous thing there. In baptism, you're lowered into the water and raised up in newness of life. And here you actually put into a coffin, and then the master mason comes along, the worshipful master comes along and pulls him up. And part of the legend of Hiram was that Solomon told Hiram to go and be lifted up. He said they brought in the body and he was dead. So had one of the Solomon's men tried to raise him up, but because his flesh was not intact, he had been dead already for several days, whatnot, for a while. So then finally, this, I think it was either Solomon, but anyway, he with the master grip was able to pull him up and resurrect him. Anyway, it's all this foolishness. So you go from this degree up to the next and the other, and finally when you get to like the 13th degree, it says the previous 12 degrees, the person is kept purposely in ignorance. It says like holding the first through 12th degree, these are, quote, kept in profound state of ignorance. So while you're sitting there doing this, wasting your time and life and going to lodge meetings and all this stuff, you're still in ignorance, although they say you're in light. So then as it says that you're kept in a profane state of ignorance and sublime secrets, which is finally disclosed in 13th degree. And so the thing is, now that you've reached the 13th degree, they finally tell you a lot of this stuff is what you need to know. And see, you're almost like the frog in the pot. You're getting turned up more and more and slowly getting they come in, Jehovah's Witnesses talk to you a little bit, till finally it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. You're just buying into a lie. So you got pastors, many pastors across this country, even in this state, deacons and lay people and so forth, Sunday school teachers, that will adhere to Freemasonry, and what it's doing is two can't walk together except to be agreed. You can't have the Spirit of God walking in the midst or the temple of a person and the spirit of Satan, because that's what is ultimately the spirit behind this organization. So even as I mentioned, the name Most Worshipful Master is a blasphemous name. It's like, okay. And then the Worshipful Master serving in his lodge, his word is said to be the final authority. But we look at the Bible, and the Bible is the final authority. So if he was in the lodge and the Worshipful Master said something that perked your conscience, wait a minute, this doesn't sound right. And he says, excuse me, the Bible says this. It says you have no place in this lodge to tell your opinion above another's. And so it's just, your religion is not to be elevated above another, because, it's, in other words, Christ, who is the way, the truth, and the life. You can't say, well, Christ is the way. Sorry, reprimand him. In fact, Captain Morgan, the one who was actually killed before, when he was in the lodge, he was called upon to pray, and so he didn't know any prayers to say. So he wasn't a Christian, so he got a book of John. John Wesley got his prayer book, so he thought, I'll take it in and pray, one of these nice flowing prayers, and then he ended it in Jesus' name, and he was sternly reprimanded by the worshipful master. Says, don't ever speak that name in the lodge again. So.
Comment. I think one of the most blasphemous things about it is, like any cult, they're redefining the terms. So Jesus calls himself the light of the world, but they're redefining what light is, and they're redefining what darkness is. And the Bible strictly warns us, don't call evil good and good evil. But in 1 John here, 1:6, it says, if we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not the truth. So.
Yeah, so you can't have the two in one, which is actually the name of this class, but anyway, you can't have God, the Spirit of God, and Spirit of devils living in the same person, which basically you're serving two masters. If you're preaching, thus saith the Lord, in the church, then on Tuesday you go to the Mason Lodge and saying something totally different. So the 32nd degree, once you get to that point, you're eligible to join the Shriners. Of course, Albert Pike, who was the one who wrote The Morals and Dogmas of Freemasonry back in the 1870s, he said, we'll so enmesh and surround Freemasonry with such good works that people who speak anything against it will be seen as a fool. So what they do is, and part of this, once you elevate up to this point here, and then you can become a Shriner, and of course that helps crippled children. Who doesn't want to help crippled children? You don't want to help crippled children. Speaking against the Masons or the Shriners, that's bad, and all like that. But the initiation into the Shriners, get this, includes taking a blood oath and swearing allegiance to Allah. So of course Allah is not the name of God; it's just another name of another little god. But we see that's taken from James Shaw and McQuaig, C.F. McQuaig's book, The Masonic Report, which you probably could look that up. We had actually ordered some of those from a ministry up in Roan Mountain, Tennessee. We heard about it, on WTVI, and you can get that ordered up from them. I think it was just little or nothing in cost. Jim Shaw was actually a former Mason, and he went all the way up to the point where he was initiated at Solomon's Temple, which is in Washington, D.C. And so he finally kept getting higher and higher in his degrees, and once he got up there, he he thought he finally arrived, which I think was like maybe 100 degrees or something. And so then somebody told him, said, well, you just got a little ways to go. So I continually climbing this ladder, which once you're there, you're still empty. So he, in despair, sought out and found the Lord, and the Lord found him, and he got saved and renounced all that. So it's kind of interesting. You got one who made it all as high as he did and was empty and got saved, and you got pastors who are claiming salvation and fullness of joy and all like that, but then they're tied up in it. So I was in a customer's house once, and it was her parents' house, and her parents, she was probably like 50 or something like that, so her parents are obviously old. And it takes time to work this way up, so many times you don't see like a 20-year-old Shriner. I mean, that just doesn't happen. So it takes years to get into it, like even to get to the 13th degree. In this particular house, there was a plaque there, and it was her father's, given to him by the Shriners, and there was a Quranic verse on it, and it talked about Allah. So I was like, well, it all lines up with what we're studying here. So how can you pledge allegiance to the Muslim God and be a Christian? So the membership in the 33rd degree is by invitation only. So invitation includes drinking wine out of a human skull and taking a solemn oath that their primary allegiance is to the 33rd degree Mason. That's also from Jim Shaw and Tom McKinney's book, The Deadly Deception. We actually got that, and I read through a little bit of that a while back when I got it. So this is getting into some heavy stuff. You're drinking wine out of a human skull. They turn it upside down, of course, and fill it up. So some of the secrets, they spend their lives carefully guarding their secrets. Initiations, rituals and secret words and oaths, signs, or body language and all this stuff. Distress signals, grand hailing sign, and the question, is there no help for the widow's son? And various things like that. And they take blood oaths, promising themselves to be killed or betrayed, or if they betray any of these secrets. But most of those secrets that they have were all revealed under this trial that was taking place of the murder of Captain Morgan. And some of the people who were former Masons came in and testified on behalf of Morgan and against the defendants, which further revealed more secrets. That's also public record. Then you had Charles Finney back in the late 1800s. You might have heard of him. He's an evangelist. Was an evangelist, but before that he got saved. He was a Mason, and when he got saved and all like that, went into evangelism. He wrote a book exposing Freemasonry as well. And there was actually other books written. One which told about the secrets and the grips and all this stuff, that they have written. That was written by 16 former Masons, and they talked about how that there was 48 degrees of Freemasonry. And another book was written that revealed 62 degrees. So it's like, if you get into it, you get like a person taking third degree. Oh wow, this is really neat. It's kind of like a little fraternity, occult fraternity. So as you get in, they keep telling you, like they told Jim Shaw, just a little bit further to go, So in addition to Blue Lodge degrees, which go through Master Mason, third degrees, you've got the Scottish Rites, York Rite degrees, and then you even have the European ones. So in Jim Shaw's book that he wrote in 1988, The Deadly Deception, he gave his autobiography and showed the human side of, experimental side of Freemasonry through the 33rd degree, and he says he gives all this information out for the purpose because he loves the men but hates the system. He's hoping to be able to see some of these people get out. So here's some of the things like you're thinking, okay, you're in allegiance, lining yourself up with people who are wanting to keep these secrets with you and all like that. So pastors, like I mentioned, chairman, deacon boards, all like that. cheat, defraud, or do violence to another Master Mason. Now, that's third degree. So, they promise not to commit adultery with the wife of a Master Mason, or seduce his sister, daughter, or other female relative. But these promises only apply to the Master Mason. They don't protect the non-Mason, entered apprentice, or fellow crafts, which is first and second degree, and their families. So they could violate them if they wanted to. And then, like, I heard a pastor on the radio say this year ago or so, which he said that after a guy was initiated, apparently it's like the first degree or whatnot, the Mason guys went home with him, and after he took an oath that he wouldn't speak out against Masons and reveal his secrets and all like that, they went home with him and raped his wife. And then he said, now, what are you going to do? It's like, okay, well, I can't come against my brother Mason. I mean, it's just all this foolishness, evil. So Masons are required, not suggested, but required to tell lies, even perjure themselves to protect other Masons, and they're also required to obey even orders which they know to be immoral. And this part here is from Edmund Renane's book, Masonic Handbook, page 183. He said, "You must conceal all the crimes of your brother Masons except murder and treason. These only at your own option. And should you be summoned as a witness against a brother Mason, be always sure to shield him. Falsify the information. Don't tell the whole truth in his case. Keep his secrets. Forget the most important points. It may be perjury to do this, it is true, but you're keeping your obligations. And remember, if you live up to your obligations strictly, your oath strictly, you'll be free from sin." Unquote. So, it's all this double talk. They talk about how it helps to make, a Mason makes a better man. And they talk about, they have like a stone, and it's got a rough edge, and they say, this is the way a man is when he comes into becoming a Freemason. He's like a rough cut man. But the longer he's in Freemasonry, he gets more rounded, smoothed off, and we help teach morals and this kind of it's just totally unbelievable. So then it goes on to say in Robert Morris's book, The Webb's Monitor of Freemasonry, right or wrong, his very existence as a Mason hangs upon obedience to the powers immediately set above him. Remember, the worshipful master is the final authority. The one unpardonable crime of Freemason is to perform is insubordination or disobedience. So, we'll put a wrap on this in a second. So we'll, I guess, go on and talk about these other things next week. Masonry's influence on America. 1953 to 1969, Chief Justice Earl Warren was a Mason. And it was during that time frame which prayer and Bible reading was taken out of schools. And also in the late 60s that things such as pornography and like that was given a slackening where you have Hollywood where it is now today. So it's not a good thing. It's incompatible with Christianity. So if you're in the Masons, it's a pretty good idea to get out and be born again.